Olivier, hi.
Hi, Jeremy.
I think it's been just over 2 years since we last sat down in this same room, and you were kind enough to share the insights of what was happening from an ACI perspective and from an airport perspective across Europe and a little bit of the global thing. Just setting the scene, what, from your perspective, what would you describe as the current situation in the aviation market, particularly airports now?
I think the first words that comes to my mind is resilience. Resilience in demand. It's quite phenomenal because we see external shocks piling up. Geopolitics, of course, geoeconomics. The European economy is not doing particularly well. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of volatility in consumer confidence and business confidence. Yet the growth keeps happening.
Absolutely.
And that's quite amazing. And I think it speaks about people changing their consumer habits, moving from material to experiential consumptions, which of course is very good for anything associated with travel and leisure, and therefore for us as airports.
No, absolutely. And it's interesting, you mentioned the word resilience. Obviously in September, we had the cyber attack that took out a number of airports across Europe. And it showed how just attacking one system has a cascading effect.
Yes.
Obviously terrible at the time, but it did show the resilience of the airport community to be able to bounce back. What do you put that down to?
I think there's much more advanced planning for resilience. I think clearly airports are very conscious that future-proofing their operations is becoming much more important as they're exposed to more vulnerabilities and more external influence. And I don't think that's going to come down anytime soon. The second factor, I think, is collaboration. I think, and it's back, I'm going back to COVID years there, and COVID. I think through COVID, we were faced with an unprecedented challenge.
Absolutely.
And we had no other choice than to roll our sleeves and work together across the ecosystem. And I think that has given birth to a deeper cooperation dynamic across the sector. Which, when you look at what we're facing ahead in terms of challenges, we need to nurture and keep developing.
Yeah, just picking up on those challenges, and you mentioned earlier on about geopolitical, and the last 2 years since we've met, the world changes again. From an airport perspective, how is that affecting those strategic decisions that the airports are making in terms of investment and in terms of what they do next and how they help their passengers?
I think you're pointing to a very important issue is the need for airports to somehow look beyond the short-term pressures. What we've seen over the past years is that, again, because of all the external factors impacting the industry, airports were forced to look much more short-term. And that's not what the airport business is about. The airport business is about long-term planning. And I think what is encouraging is that now we see clearly airport going back to long-term planning, despite all the uncertainties linked to the geoeconomic, geopolitical environments. And I think that's very good. I was actually yesterday at Amsterdam Schiphol, and they have a massive investment plans for the next 10 years. They're going to spend 10 billion euro over the next 10 years, so it's 1 billion euro per year. Same thing with AENA, the Spanish airport networks, massive investment plan. I think they're going to spend 2 billion euro per year over the next 5 years. So I think airports have now learned to, they have integrated the much more volatile environment and the uncertainty, and they're looking beyond that. And they're looking beyond that because we're in a very lucky industry, because we know growth is going to keep coming.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I think it's going to be less growth compared to what we've been used to because of different factors, including, of course, climate action. But growth will still be there. And that means that as an airport, it's your responsibility to keep planning for, being able to handle that growth moving forward.
Okay, good. Let's talk about that traffic, as you said, that growth which is coming in and the performance of those airports. Well, what do you see looking ahead in terms of the best performing markets? What are they now, and how do you see that evolving in terms of connectivity, and why are they standing out? Why are they performing so well?
Well, that's an interesting development through and post-COVID. the huge performance gaps we have today in the market in terms of passenger volumes and connectivity. We're in a multi-speed aviation market or airport market, which was not the case before. I mean, when we were hit with crisis in the past, be it 9/11 or the global financial crisis or the sovereign debt crisis in Europe, the markets that were impacted tended to then come back at a similar speed. Everybody was growing again, more or less at the same rates or similar rates. This time it's very different. We have markets that are far above their pre-pandemic levels, and usually those are markets in the south and the east of Europe. And we have markets which are really still struggling to get back to where they were in 2019, particularly the Nordics and Germany. I think Germany is still 15% down on passenger volumes compared to pre-pandemic. Finland and Sweden are 22% down. And then at the other end of the spectrum, of course, you have countries like Greece, Cyprus, Spain, Portugal, Poland, which have been booming and are easily 20 to 30% above pre-pandemic levels.
Yeah.
So that's and we get the same in terms of air connectivity. So that's down to a change structure in the European aviation market. The fact that on the demand side, the recovery has been driven by leisure, VFR, and leisure, and not so much by business traffic. So of course, those markets that rely on that kind of demand get a kick. And that's done also to the fact that the recovery is mainly driven by low-cost carriers who have used the pandemic and the recovery as an opportunity to grow their market shares, whereas the main network airline groups, with the exception of Turkish Airlines, have tended to retrench on their hubs. So that also benefits or not certain markets. And then you have, of course, the impacts of geopolitics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which has been hitting hard some markets. Finland, for example, that I mentioned.
Of course.
The main reason for them is the fact that Helsinki and Finnair was serving East Asia, overflying Russia. They can't do that anymore. It's a huge competitive disadvantage, and that has hurt them very badly.
No, absolutely, I 100% agree. It's interesting, you mentioned Turkish and you mentioned the growth in the east. We can't not talk about the Istanbul airport, obviously, fully operational and a heavily connected airport now. What benefits is that giving the region?
I think it's good for European aviation, it's good for global aviation. We have a new major player that benefits for very strong alignment across the national ecosystem and with the government, which is something we're a bit missing in Western Europe. So, I think it's new competition. And I think actually Turkish Airlines gives a lot of opportunity for increasing connectivity to many European airports. I think a few years ago I was attending a conference and a representative from Turkish Airlines was speaking, and I was stunned, shocked by what he said. He said, Turkish Airlines flies to more German airports than Lufthansa.
Wow.
So that shows how they have developed connectivity in a very efficient manner. Of course, they have a fantastic geographical position.
Of course.
Because they can serve not just large European airports, but also small European airports because of their proximity. And of course, there's the perfect gateway to serve whatever is east of Istanbul, and also Africa.
And as you said, that perfect example of working with an airport, working perfectly in harmony with the government to be able to drive the initiatives.
I mean, they have their difficulties. It's not all rosy, but generally what is key is that Turkey has really integrated aviation as an important strategic element of its economic development policy. And there's a huge recognition for the economic and social benefits that air connectivity, airports and aviation bring. And I think that's something that's taken for granted in many parts of Western Europe, or something that we've even forgotten in many parts of Europe. I think I'm a bit hopeful now that, as we see the EU moving to address this competitiveness gap, that we can position aviation and airports as essential for European competitiveness. I mean, certainly that's what we're trying to do here at ACI Europe for our members.
Great stuff. Okay, let's finish on talking about the passenger volume. As you said right at the beginning of our conversation, it's increasing, it's sustained, it's come back after COVID, and it continues to grow. We're in a great industry, which we all love. What are you seeing across your community, the airport community, in terms of those investments that people are making to improve the customer experience or to maintain it whilst these passenger flows are going through their airports?
I think first there's the fact that as we're going back into a long-term investment cycle, and again, that's great for Europe's competitiveness. We need that. It's about our global positioning. We're seeing airports actually investing a lot on upgrading and modernizing their facilities.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, historically, it used to be about building capacity. Building more capacity, more physical capacity is important, but it's not always possible.
Mm-hmm.
What you need to do for sure is upgrade and modernize facilities. Many airports are now in Europe facilities that are getting aged. And it's about embracing digitalization, automation, mm-hmm. And the promises that this brings in terms of really taking the passenger experience to the next level. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to see very exciting things coming up. I don't know of any airport of a certain size that is not looking at AI and what it can do to improve operational efficiency, mm-hmm. To break the operational silos. I think that's to me, that's one of the main challenges we face, because if you look at airports, of course, we have many different actors, third parties that are using our facilities, but the level of connection alignment, both tactically and strategically between those parties is not where it should be. And I think with digitalization, we have the opportunity to finally put everybody on the same page and break those operational cycles.
I fully agree. And it's interesting, when you're talking to the leaders within the airport community, as you said, everyone investing in AI, everyone investing in data and analytics, there's always a 1 or a 2 or a 3 on an airport CEO's to-do list. How high do you see this digitization? How high do you see the need to invest and say, we need to do this as the passenger?
No, I think it's really driving airport strategy at the moment. It really stands at the core of airport strategy across Europe. Mm-hmm. I think it's why is that? Because this is what's going to future-proof our business, mm-hmm. certainly. And what's interesting is that airports are not just buying ready-made solutions from suppliers. They want to be actors, so they are really looking at developing, having a stake in developing those solutions, which is new. We have, most major airports in Europe now have innovation labs. They're working with startups. Mm-hmm. They're really trying to push the innovation agenda forward. And in doing that, I think what is really interesting is how they're reflecting on their corporate structure to really make sure that innovation is horizontal, and it's not just a separate department. It's really something that has to do with changing the culture, the corporate culture of the airport.
Brilliant. Okay. Final question. We've spoken about the positives of 2025, resilience in the face of some adversity, increasing passenger volumes, infrastructure which is great. I don't want to finish on a negative, so we'll do a negative and a positive.
Great.
Tell me what you think for 2026 in terms of any headwinds that the airport community need to face, and then how they're going to address it and be positive for all the customers and passengers that are flying.
I think for 2026, the big question mark is whether the resilience we've seen in demand will continue. Mm-hmm. And that's going to depend largely whether we can avoid further external shocks, especially coming from geoeconomics and geopolitics. Mm-hmm. I think that's the key. If we don't get massive external shocks, I think we're going to be able to sail through, or fly through rather, 2026 with still, increased traffic and increased connectivity. The other headwinds, it's more specific to Europe, is policy and regulations. Because we don't have policy frameworks in Europe and regulations that are really supportive of the sector on various levels. Mm-hmm. when it comes to climate action. We do have regulations in the EU that give us legal certainty, especially with the SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuels. We have very clear mandates, which is very good, but we don't get enough financial support and flexibility mechanism to make sure that there is enough SAF produced in Europe.
Absolutely.
And that the price gap with conventional fuel is reduced. And as the mandates are increasing and kicking in, that means that the cost impact is going to be massive on the industry. And that cost impact will translate into reduced demand at some point.
So it'll be passed on to the consumers.
And behind that, reduced connectivity and reduced positive economic and social impacts of aviation. So that's a major challenge. I think we have other things linked to regulation where also in Europe we're not supportive of innovation. For example, in relation to biometrics, we have very stringent GDPR rules, and the way they are being interpreted is even more stringent. So at the moment, actually, we have many pilots for biometric solutions at European airport that have been stopped by the national regulators. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is rushing and running in implementing those solutions. So that's a major competitive disadvantage if it's not addressed. And we have issues in terms of security regulations also, where we're not able to deploy new technology at the pace we would like. And that's a hurdle to easing passenger flows. And potentially it could become also an issue of security. But these are all issues we are very much focused on as ACI Europe. We're working daily with the European institutions, national governments. But it's a fight because again, I think the level of attention of governments, of policymakers in Europe to aviation is not where it should be.
Yeah. And on that note, I agree wholeheartedly. Olivier, thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeremy. My pleasure. My pleasure.